Hello everyone. My name is Peter. Welcome to the true stories being shared here. Please sit back and listen to today's story. AITAH for telling my boyfriend 23 if funny form, it's his fault if he misses our flight, and then I'll go without him? My boyfriend and I planned a trip at the end of summer a few months ago. Last night, we were still trying to figure out how we'd get to the airport when my mom offered to drive us before she went to work. I told my boyfriend, who lives 30 minutes away from me, that he needed to be at my place no later than 6 a.m. so my mom could drive us to the airport at 6:15. He promised he'd be there around 5:45. This morning there was no sign of him until about 6:20. He told me his phone fell and he didn't hear the alarm. By that time, my mom had to leave and could only take me if she didn't want to be late for work. I told him he should either drive himself to the airport or call an Uber. His mom decided she would drive in the hour to the airport, since he was too late for my mom to take us both. He arrived at the airport shortly after I did, and I was checking in our luggage. We got to the baggage drop-off, and he realized he didn't have his ID. His wallet was at his house, an hour away from the airport. I told him I'd go on through TSA and head to the gate. His mom was going back to get his wallet, which would obviously take some time. I told him that no matter what, I would board the flight, and that if he missed it, that was the result of his own carelessness. Then he started asking what to do if he missed it. I told him he's an adult and should figure out how to get to our destination by contacting customer service. I planned everything for this trip, from the flights to the travel arrangements. I felt that at this point, I'd done all I could to ensure a successful and smooth trip, and I didn't feel it was my responsibility to manage the fallout for him if he missed the flight. There was no refund for the airman that we split the cost of if we didn't go. AITAH for continuing on without him? Update 4 days later. I think the trip, despite the risks and conclusions I'm about to draw at the end of this post, has opened my eyes, and I'm grateful for that. I've had a track record of misjudging and misunderstanding behavior, and I've promised myself that won't happen again. So I set boundaries for myself early. The trip began with him oversleeping, so he didn't meet me at my house to catch the ride to the airport. While it wasn't an act of cruelty in itself, it was something that had happened repeatedly on different occasions. When he finally woke up and met me at the airport, late, he discovered he didn't have his wallet. The most crucial thing to have when traveling. Wondering how someone could forget something so important, I waited for him to retrieve it, but it was futile. He called his mom, blaming her for rushing him that morning, which could have been avoided if he'd been a responsible adult, woken up on time, and packed his things the night before, and took no responsibility. Luckily, she came to his rescue. But not soon enough. He had to rebook his flight and arrive later that day. During that process, he still asked me which gate our flight was at, when the gate number was displayed in the screenshot he sent me, instead of using the information I'd already given him. I organized the entire trip, down to the transportation, flights, accommodations, and more. I handed him a small ball to carry, and he still dropped it. In dropping that ball, he failed to take responsibility for his actions. I should have known how the rest of the trip would go. During the trip, there were several instances that only reinforced the feelings I already harbored. Outbursts of anger followed by childish behavior and excuses. When confronted, only excuses and a lack of accountability followed. Everything was met with, "But I'm trying so hard, what am I doing wrong?" even though the issues were directly explained. He lost his debit card, and despite my efforts to track his steps, calling businesses we visited and everything, he ran ahead of me, leaving me behind, walking the streets alone. When I explained why that upset me and was unacceptable, there were more excuses and ramblings about how he didn't mean for it to happen, but still did. While walking to different restaurants, he cursed at men who even looked at me, staring them down and nearly causing a scene. He misplaced his wallet before dinner and acted similarly, cursing, slamming things and throwing items around instead of calmly searching for his wallet. I sat there in disbelief, as this was behavior I hadn't seen before. I told him that this was unattractive and showed a lack of control and emotional maturity. More excuses followed. Perhaps there are other examples I could use, but they're slipping my mind. It was the night before departure. I was in tears. It started at the beach. We decided to go for a night swim. Everything was fine until he lost his ring in the sea. Luckily, I was right next to him, so I managed to catch it with my hand. He stepped out and threw it into the sand. Smart, right? When we finished, he got upset when I sent his mom a video of him jumping. I walked away because I didn't want to listen to it. Then he called me back and told me he'd lost his ring in the sand. We searched for the ring, meaning I was on my hands and knees while he walked around with a flashlight. I eventually found it. We began walking back to the room. I said, "Can I say something serious? Sometimes I start to feel like your mom, keeping track of your things and helping you manage the fallout." He reacted strongly, saying I didn't have to help him, that I didn't acknowledge everything he was doing, like calling Ubers and paying for everything, that I wasn't like his mom, and he didn't ask me to do anything. In anger, I told him to fuck off and walked away. Yes, I know that wasn't good, and I later apologized for my behavior. I walked up to the room alone. He begged me to talk when he got there, but I didn't want to. I took a shower and told him one thing: this trip has really made me reconsider whether I want to continue this relationship. He became frantic, begging me to talk to him, saying I didn't acknowledge all the good things he was doing, repeating himself. I told him I didn't want to talk, didn't want to be touched, and wanted to be left alone. I also apologized for my harsh words, no excuses at all. He told me I was always rude before dating. I'd been harsh when he showed up unannounced at my place, and showed other signs of emotional immaturity and disregarded my wishes. He started trying to hug me. I told him to get off me. He kept touching me as I tried to lie down on the bed, trying to cuddle and hold my hand. At this point, I started crying. I ran into the bathroom and began sobbing. I came out as he kept crying and begging me to talk to him. He started getting loud and making a scene. I ran to grab the pull-out bed from the closet to sleep on. He blocked me and pushed the bed back, telling me I didn't need it. I became more and more hysterical as I was being blocked and told him to get out of my way and leave me alone. He didn't and protested by sitting on the pull-out bed. I tore the comforter off the real bed and made a bed on the floor. He took the blankets and pillows out from under me, saying he wasn't going to let me sleep on the floor. He continued to yell in my ear, telling me to get up, that he loved me, to leave everything behind, while he kept pulling the pillow I had back. He finally left me alone on the floor. Leaving the airport in 3 hours. Honestly, I'm thinking of changing my flight. I'm still trying to figure out the logistics of breaking up, like how it might happen and when. After checking OOP on other flights. Our flight is the earliest of the day. There are others, but no confirmed seats, only standby. Related comments. Commenter: that's only going to escalate in future arguments. Get home safe and never see this man again. OP: that's troubling because the kind of anger that flared up in me is the kind that only erupted with past exes. Being cornered and having my personal space violated is something I can't handle at all. I'd say I tried to push him away, which I probably shouldn't have done, and raised my voice because I feared his yelling would get us kicked out. Our booking had a quiet hours policy. Commenter: get out of where you are. OP: I've thought about this. The AB is under my name. I already know I can't really trust him to follow through on closing procedures, so I'm worried about being hit with a fee if he leaves something undone. Also, if I wake up now, I know he'll try to stop me from leaving. We're still on the same flight in case he makes it there on time. He's still awake now, and a Uber will be here in an hour. Commenter: you have every right to express your anger and frustration. Women are raised from a young age to be pleasant, agreeable, and keep the peace. Time for that is over. Now it's time for fuck that. Don't be nice anymore. Be blunt. Be rude if you have to. You need to get this man off of you, and you need to never buy into his "I'm trying" bullshit again. OP, I actually told him to fuck that earlier when I told him I felt like his mom, and he said, "You didn't have to help me find the ring, I just asked for help." He said I was being rude and that he'd never talked to me that way, and that his friends told him to stay away from me because I'm always rude to him. He even called me rude for leaving the room and having the key, and he had to get someone else to let him in. I admit that I've chewed him out before dating because of his unstable emotions. He constantly texted me, and I'd say things like "leave me alone" or "you need therapy" and to leave me alone. I can't take another half-baked excuse for my concerns. Commenter, if you feel unsafe, record your future conversations and send them to his mom. OP, I just thought about this, hours later. Though I have a feeling it wouldn't change anything. The other day, when he was away from me, I told her, and she told me to be happy with him, love him, and work things out. She constantly makes excuses for him. Commenter, when I read your first post, I was worried. He seemed like a teen gamer. But on vacation, he's been so aggressive. Time to get out. Just block him on everything. The reason I said talk to his mom is BC. She's enabled his behavior his entire life. She knows what he's like. OP, yes. There was a recent instance when we went to a football game, and he was so aggressive. He'd been drinking, and some guy accidentally bumped into him. I was sober and believe it wasn't intentional. I witnessed the whole thing, but he swore the guy purposely slammed into him. It was a crowded game, and we were all exiting. Everyone was bumping into someone. He started aggressively checking the guy's body with extreme force. He went to the restroom, and that guy came up to me and told me that one day my boyfriend is going to run into the wrong person. It was embarrassing. I should have recorded it. Now I feel stupid. Though I have a feeling she would have definitely made excuses for him. Commenter, why did you start dating someone who couldn't respect you even before you were dating? OP, he wasn't like this before. The aggression is something I hadn't witnessed. Commenter, I mean the surprise visits and ignoring your wishes. What made you overlook the red flags and fall into this situation? I'm not trying to be mean. Just to understand. OP, I guess the apologies and benefit of the doubt. A lot of people were upset that I didn't give him the benefit of the doubt in my first post. I like to give first and even second chances. I'm not perfect, and I don't expect my partner to be either. He apologized for past behavior and made some progress in areas, but clearly not in the most important ones. Commenter, serious question. Is he an alcoholic? He's dating one person, and on one short vacation, he's acted like this. A stubborn child. Or is it just weaponized immaturity? OP, he used to self-medicate with alcohol to cope with emotions. On one occasion, his mom had to drive to his Apple location and found him drunk, asleep in his car outside a friend's house, when he'd promised her he'd be home soon. I'm not sure if the frequency or amount of his drinking warrants an official diagnosis of alcoholism, but both his parents had issues with alcohol throughout his childhood. His mom says he's always felt like that when drinking. We don't often drink together as a couple, but when we have, this hasn't happened before. We've just clubbed and had fun. Small update. A few hours later. I'm at the airport now. When I left, he was asleep. He hasn't texted or read my messages, and his location hasn't moved, so I assume he's still asleep. I made it to the airport alone. As I boarded the plane, he texted me saying I should have woken him up so he wouldn't miss the flight. He said I should have at least woken him up since his phone was apparently on silent. He really slept through because I left while he was sleeping to get to the airport. He missed the flight. I sent him a message explaining everything and told him not to come to my place, or I'd call the cops. He's now texting my mom long paragraphs trying to explain his behavior. I told her to ignore him.